Well, good morning, everybody. Have another RV project for you today. Wasn't that long ago and I noticed that when I put the RV in reverse, I no longer had a backup image coming out of my backup camera. So I've actually got it repaired now, but I have some footage and I want to show you what I learned in the process of fixing this. I think it'll be useful. Sooner or later, all these cameras quit. So let me show you what I learned. So the backup camera in my RV hasn't been working over the last year or so. Did a little research on it and I found out the problem is typically either the camera itself or the wiring adapter. I'm trying to show here, you can see this backup camera wire goes into this. Haven't exposed everything yet. There's a lot of stuff taped up here. But I pulled this out. All you do is basically pop the camera out of the hole. I use this little auto body tool, but pretty much anything that will not scratch your paint. And you can work it underneath the, this outer ridge here. You can pull it out. Just take your time and, work it out of the hole, and then all this wire can be pulled out. So I tear all this tape off of here and see what's underneath all this. See if I can figure out some way to either replace it or diagnose what's going on. Well, I spent the last 15 minutes peeling back electrical tape, and what I've exposed here is, this is the wire that goes down to the camera. There's a camera, follow that wire. It comes into this, which it looks like this is some type of connector, but I don't, from what I've exposed so far, and there may be more tape on here and I just can't tell. From what I've exposed so far, I don't see anything that comes apart. And then from there, I still have tape on this section that's being rather difficult to get off, but now I've exposed this. I'm gonna call this some kind of a junction, because what we have here is a video cable that goes out and connects here to the RV wiring. So there's just an RCA adapter here. Then we've got these two this orange and white wire that comes down into this other mass of electrical tape that goes into these and then connects to this red and black wire, which I assume is the power. So if I expose all this, I assume I'll just find the connections between these wires. So that's where I'm at so far. I guess I'm going to try and get this tape off of here next. I want to get to the point where I can disconnect the camera and this, whatever this adapter is, completely from the RV wiring, and then, get a closer look at it. I have another layer of tape off it now, so I can see that red is going to orange, the black is going to white. And there's more tape yet before I get down to the actual, I'll call them joints or connections. Hopefully they're soldered once I get under there. Okay, all right, here's what I ended up with. Getting all this tape off of here was a real challenge. But I did end up finding a soldered connection here. I'm sure this one is also soldered. This is the black wire going to the white from the RV. Don't let this red confuse you there. This red went to the orange. It's just because I had such a hard time trying to cut this tape off of here. It was really on there. So this chases back up here. The power comes into this balun or whatever it is. And then coming out the other side, I mean, I'm sure I ended up cutting this blue wire, but I think it was just looped and exposed. It certainly wasn't going down into this end, just like the white is just a continuous loop in and out. So I don't think that was actually, being used, but obviously this isn't gonna work anymore. That connection would have to be fixed, I assume. And then I got even more tape off of this, but I don't see that this comes apart at this point. Now, I could be wrong. Guess I could try that again, but that just goes to the camera. So I'm gonna go ahead and buy a replacement for all this and wire it back up, and then we'll see what happens. I did some research on these backup cameras, and what I found out is this power connection gets wired into the backup lights on your vehicle. So when you put it in reverse, those backup lights get 12 volts. That 12 volts ends up going into the camera. The camera obviously comes on because it's got power, and the video signal goes back through this wire, which is connected up through your head unit up on your dashboard somewhere. So I thought, well, I ought to be able to simulate that easy enough. So I basically used a 12-volt jumper connection to power it. I hooked this up to a video connection on a television. I had to use another RCA adapter that went male to male, since this is the female connection, to get it connected. And I got no signal, no picture coming back through it. So I assume that's a test to prove this camera is not working either through the electrical or whatever the case may be. So I guess that's just confirmation I should go ahead and replace this. So I'm going to go ahead and order a replacement from my RV manufacturer. Okay, just to avoid any confusion and to make sure I was going to get something that would work, I decided to call Leisure Travel Vans, talk to the parts department, and I knew they'd be able to tell me exactly what camera I would need in order to replace that. So, you know, they used my serial number, they know exactly what they used when they built it, and you know, he always has a good solution as to what I need. So they actually sent me this as a replacement camera, and you know, it worked out. There was an issue with the video connector adapter. You know, the original one had a female connection. The one that I was supplied had a male connection. That's not a big deal. And, you know, I'll show you what I did with that. Well, I got my new camera wired in, and I just tested it, and it does work. So I'm just going to quickly review here what I had to do to make this work. So first thing, obviously, is the red wire goes to orange. I have that. You know, these are soldered. Here's the ground wire. You can see that's soldered. Now I have it straightened out and taped, and then I'm going to put some of this shrink wrap around it. So I'll do that with each of those connections. And then the complexity I had was the connector that I'm connecting to is you can see that comes from my RV, is a male adapter. What they gave me with this adapter was in fact another male connector. And I don't know, I didn't want to put yet another cable in the middle there. So I went ahead and cut this female connector off my old adapter. And then I had to wire it into this new adapter, which frankly was kind of risky. But in a minute, I'll show you what I did there in order to do that, because the wiring on the two of them was a little different, but I got lucky and made the right choices with the color matching. So I'll show you that in a minute. So with that all done, I proved to myself this new camera's working, so now I just have to button everything back up and get the camera properly aligned. All right, I just want to show you how I modified this adapter, switched out the adapter. So when I disconnected the male, or cut the cable that goes to the male adapter, what I found was a yellow core, which is the video signal, and then I found there's a bunch of individual strands of copper around that. So I just wrapped all those together. That's your ground side of that connection. So, you know, basically you're gonna have the other side of this wire where you're gonna expose the yellow in that braided wire like that, okay? And then when you cut your old connection, what you're gonna find, and unfortunately I don't have a good example here because I didn't have enough left on this piece to really illustrate it properly, but if you cut off the outside insulation properly, what you'll expose is a red wire, a red shielded wire, and a black shielded wire. Now in this case, when I cut it, I happened to take off the black insulation. So In this case, the black is the ground and the red is the signal. So you would be, you know, when you put them together, you want to put the red to the yellow and then the grounds together, right? That's how you want to reconnect them, solder those, wrap them up good and protect them, and, you know, it seems to work just fine. So, you know, once you've got all the connections made, it's really just a matter of, you know, wrapping up all that wire using electrical tape, just like they did at the factory, fishing it back down the hole, and you know, putting the camera back in the hole. Now, once that's done, you know, you can test it out, obviously, but what you'll have to do is probably align the camera to make sure it's pointing in the right direction. And the only way to know how it's pointing for sure is to, you know, fire up the RV, put it in reverse, and look, and you can adjust it accordingly. But, you know, once that was all done, I was back in business. So, if you like these videos, really appreciate a like and a subscribe. Thanks a bunch. See you later.